Many pianists struggle with being able to play the piano without reading sheet music. They can't internalize the music and just play it from memory. In this video, I'm going to share what musical memorization is and why it is very beneficial to memorize the music that you learn. And then I'll share some common reasons why people struggle with memorizing music. And finally, at the end, I'll give a step-by-step process on how to memorize a piece of music so that you can ditch the sheet music. So why is it beneficial to memorize the music you learn? The first one is very simple. It allows you to look at your hands. You're playing two hands at once. It's hard to even look at two of them. When we add the music, it doesn't allow you to look at your hands to make sure that you're playing the correct notes. The second reason, it's a matter of convenience. If you have music memorized and you stumble across a piano in your life, well then you can play it. And you don't have to carry sheet music around with you wherever you go. The third reason, and perhaps one of the most important, is that it makes you really learn every note. You'll learn a piece of music a lot better once it's memorized, so you can actually use the memorization to help you play it better. The fourth reason is that sheet music is just unnecessary for what we're trying to do. We're trying to create the sounds that we're going for by accurate physical movements. Reading music is just unnecessary for that. It's like what I call a third wheel. It's kind of getting in the way of what really matters, which is the sound and feelings of the music. The final reason is memorizing music is better for the audience. The audience wants to see the performer focused and in tune with the music. By reading the music, it just doesn't seem like it's taken as seriously. It's like acting. Picture an actor trying to portray the character and emotion of what they're acting. If they're reading the script, it instantly takes away the illusion of the acting. Music's the same way. We're portraying the emotion and character of music, and by reading it, it just makes it look like we're reading that music instead of really trying to communicate those emotions. So what is memory? Well, memory is the ability of our brains to store, process, retain, and then later recall information. But musical memory is complicated. It involves different types of memory. But there are two types of memory that help us memorize music. Those are called implicit and explicit memory. Implicit memory is an automatic movement, which musicians call muscle memory. It's kind of like knowing how to ride a bike. You know how to do the movement. While explicit memory is information. It's like you know your own phone number. In music, you would know the names of notes or chords or the structure of the song. All that information we're able to recall and help the implicit muscle memory. So these two types of memory really work hand in hand. The muscle memory is the automatic playing, but the explicit thinking memory helps guide that if we ever get a little lost. So let's talk about a few of the problems people often have with memorizing music. One of the biggest problems is only having muscle memory. These are people who just play the song over and over until they can just play it automatically. But there are a lot of flaws with muscle memory. The solution is to use explicit memory, thinking. You gotta think of specific things at certain times to help guide the muscle memory. Another problem people often have is they know the sound of the music, and when the note goes up, it's a bit of a guess. They guess a note higher, but it might not be the right note, and then they have to search until they find the right one. Again, this is where explicit memory will come in and help. By thinking of the distance or the name of the note that you go to, you can hit it accurately. Another problem of muscle memory is when you make a mistake and all of a sudden you're lost and you don't know how to get back on track. The solution there is to have certain checkpoints or rescue points. So if you mess up, well, you could just jump ahead to the next rescue point and you've practiced starting from each spot. And then one of the biggest problems of memorizing is people rely on the sheet music too much. It becomes a crutch or like a comfort. They don't want to take the music away because then they might forget it. But you really have to stop using the music and learn what you are forgetting so then you can relearn those notes and eventually be able to play without music. So here is the step-by-step process you can use to memorize a piece of music. The first step is to familiarize yourself with the music. You want to listen to it while you read the score and just get familiar how it sounds. You can read it and play it and just kind of get acquainted with it. I usually play each hand separately and maybe a little bit together slowly. Then you want to divide the piece into sections. If there are blatant sections in the piece, then you want to learn each section separately. I would finish memorizing one section before you proceed to another section. And then within those sections, you want to divide those into small chunks. You can go as small as you want, maybe 4 measures, 8 measures, or just memorize 1 measure at a time. Now, while you're reading the music and playing it and getting familiar with it, you want to note any challenges. These are the spots where you'll want to use explicit memory or thinking of specific things to help you remember it and get acquainted with it. Now, what you think of specifically can vary. You could think like, oh, here I need to jump up and play this note, the note name. Another very useful thing is the intervals. Like I play up 5 notes or 6 notes. You memorize those distances between the notes and give them their name. But my favorite way to think about music is to think of the chord names. I think of the names of each chord that I'm playing and the music is suggesting, or even the chord progressions. Like it's a dominant chord resolving down a fifth, well then that helps me remember what those 2 chords are. Oftentimes I'll think of other simplistic things like, oh, I play a black note here and a white note here and it's these notes, and I don't give them too much of a name, just a little bit of a specific thought. Or I might use other types of names like, oh, this is that really weird sounding chord and it goes like this. And you just give things names to help trigger the memories and think of them in specific ways. Then when it's time to get down and actually start memorizing, you want to start at the beginning of whatever chunk of whatever section you're doing, memorize a little bit, and then turn the music around and test your memory. And the parts that you forget, then you turn it back around and try to remember them, and then test it again. Now, what a lot of people do is they don't turn the music around, and when they get to the part where they're like, oh, I kind of forget, they take a little peek, and then they keep going. By turning the page around, it makes you acknowledge, I don't know what note this is. Turn it around, take a look, and then when you try it again, you can see if you remembered it. Once all the music is memorized, it's good to reinforce it and build strong muscle memory by playing slowly and deliberately in a non-musical way. This is just reviewing the notes by playing them slowly, checking the notes, and then you get to a spot, you're like, oh, I kind of forget that note. The final step is to test, and you're constantly testing your memory. Test what you've memorized previously. Now, memory fades, and it's a fact of life. So if you stop playing the piece for a bit, you'll start to forget the weakest parts, and you have to relearn them. So let me know if that helps you memorize music, and if you have any struggles memorizing, please let me know as well.